Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to sit on a plane, just another anonymous passenger, until the sky itself recognized you? Imagine being in seat 7F, quiet and unnoticed, until your voice, your call sign, came across a radio frequency, and suddenly A-10 Warthog pilots, the very legends of the skies, broke formation to salute. This isn't just a flight story. It's a story about respect, sacrifice, and the kind of heroism that refuses to fade, no matter how much time passes. Stay with me until the end, because what happened when her voice came over the radio will give you chills. And before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more unforgettable stories of courage and the human spirit. The flight from Phoenix to Chicago was like any other. The passengers were a blend of business travelers, families heading east for reunions, and tired tourists clutching souvenirs. The cabin smelled faintly of coffee and disinfectant, the kind of smell you only notice if you've been on too many flights. The engines hummed their steady lullaby as the plane began its climb, the desert landscape shrinking beneath until it was nothing but patches of gold and red earth. In seat 7F sat a woman who, at first glance, blended perfectly into the background. She wasn't scrolling endlessly on her phone like the businessman in 8A, nor was she chatting nervously with the stranger beside her. Instead, she gazed out the window, her eyes locked on the endless expanse of blue sky. Her name was Captain Amelia Hart. To the airline, she was just another traveler. To the manifest, just a name and a seat number. But to those who had once served in the skies, she was a legend. Amelia had flown A-10 Warthogs during her military years, a close air support pilot who had faced more fire than most could imagine. Her call sign, Valkyrie, was whispered with reverence among younger pilots, many of whom had grown up reading about her daring missions. She had been the one who swooped down into the chaos when troops on the ground cried for help, the one who never missed when it mattered most. But her career had ended quietly after an injury grounded her permanently. No medal ceremony, no parades, just silence. Civilian life hadn't been easy for her. How could it be, after living in the adrenaline-soaked reality of combat skies? Yet here she was, flying like anyone else, ticket stub in her pocket, quiet and anonymous in seat 7F. She had no idea that this flight would awaken the sky itself to her presence. About an hour into the flight, the captain's voice came over the intercom, calm and professional. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've been informed that there are military training exercises in the area. You may notice aircraft outside your windows. Please remain calm. This is routine." Murmurs spread through the cabin. Children pressed their faces against the glass, hoping for a glimpse of fighter jets. And sure enough, moments later, shadows streaked past the windows. Sleek, thunderous A-10 Warthogs roared into view, their shark-mouth paint glaring against the clouds. For many passengers, it was thrilling, like watching a live air show. But for Amelia, her breath caught. She knew those aircraft intimately. She knew their power, their sound, their very heartbeat. The pilots of the A-10s had no idea who was on board the passenger plane. For them, it was just another civilian aircraft to monitor while they carried out their training maneuvers. But then, through a crackling frequency, something extraordinary happened. The commercial flight's cockpit was tuned to the military channel for coordination when suddenly Amelia's voice slipped across the line. She had been invited forward by the flight crew, after overhearing their chatter and recognizing terms only a fellow aviator would know. At first, the crew was skeptical. "You flew A-10s?" the captain asked. She smiled faintly, almost embarrassed. "Once upon a time." With a nod of trust, they handed her the headset. "Steel formation, this is Valkyrie. Do you copy?" Her voice was steady, filled with a calm authority that hadn't dulled with time. For a second, silence. And then the radio erupted. "Valkyrie, say again." The A-10 pilots could hardly believe it. To them, Valkyrie was a legend from their textbooks, a name passed down in training briefings as an example of bravery. And now, impossibly, her voice was on the line from a civilian airliner. Inside the cabin, most passengers had no idea what was happening. They watched curiously as the A-10s shifted position, moving closer to the commercial jet in perfect, almost ceremonial formation. The crew whispered among themselves, stunned, as they realized who their quiet passenger in 7F really was. "Steel 1 to Valkyrie," came the reply. Ma'am, it's an honor. You inspired half of us to fly these birds. The emotion in the pilot's voice was unmistakable. And then, as if choreographed by history itself, the A-10s tilted their wings in salute. Not to the jet, not to the airline, to her. The passengers gasped. Those near the windows pointed and pressed their faces against the glass, marveling at the sight of military jets bowing in midair. But Amelia didn't bask in it. Instead, her eyes misted. Memories of fallen comrades flooded back. She whispered quietly into the headset, so softly that only the cockpit crew could hear. That salute isn't for me. It's for all of them. When the A-10s finally pulled away, resuming their training path, the cabin of the passenger plane erupted in applause. People stood, clapping, cheering, though they barely understood what had just happened. The captain of the flight came over the intercom again, his voice thick with pride. Ladies and gentlemen, today you shared the skies with a true American hero. Passenger 7F, Captain Amelia Hart, better known as Valkyrie, once flew the very aircraft you just saw. And it seems the pilots out there still remember her name. The applause grew louder. Strangers leaned over seats to shake her hand. Some wept openly. Amelia, embarrassed, only smiled faintly, placing her hand against the window where the Warthogs had been moments before. When the plane landed in Chicago, there were no news cameras waiting, no media frenzy. Just passengers whose lives had been quietly changed by what they had witnessed. Some walked away with renewed respect for the sacrifices of those who serve. Others simply carried the memory of a salute in the sky. Amelia slipped out of the airport quietly, as she always did, her worn leather bag over her shoulder. But she carried with her something she hadn't felt in years, a reminder that though the world might forget, the sky never does. And that's her story. A woman who boarded as just another traveler in seat 7F, but who the sky itself could never forget. Sometimes the most extraordinary people sit quietly among us, their history hidden until fate reveals it. If this story moved you, if it gave you chills, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Because we bring you more than just stories. We bring you reminders of courage, honor, and the incredible power of the human spirit.